What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto was raised in the shadows and became the ultimate assassin? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. There was a lonely little boy living by himself, ignored by everyone who only wanted to be recognized by someone. The only one who ever made time for him was the old man Hokage, and even that was only on the odd occasion when he was treated to a meal. He lived very simply and found few moments of happiness in his life. Other children never played with him or bullied him when they caught him alone. Their parents were no better, encouraging their kids to torment him while they ignored him. Since he could remember, he had only wanted people to actually look at him instead of looking the other way. Acknowledgement was what he craved, recognition by someone, anyone. He dreamt of being a ninja, a kick-ass guardian protecting the village, a hero who would be respected by all. When he was approached by a strange man who offered him his dream, he readily accepted, in his innocence never dreaming of the dark path he would be forced to walk. The thief stepped inside his apartment grumbling at his rotten luck that day. Though market day was normally a great time to mingle with the crowds of the city and pickpocket, he had only managed to get a single wallet before a commotion in the crowd had drawn the police. Ryoku was not fool enough to try to pickpocket while ninjas were around. His grumbling increased as he flicked the light switch back and forth as nothing happened, leaving his humble apartment in shadow. Stepping forward to make his way into the kitchen, he gasped in pain as he was struck suddenly from behind, a vicious blow to the back of the legs that floored him. Struggling onto his hands and knees, he was confronted by a small dark figure in front of him that blended with the shadows of the unlit apartment. The glint of light of the kunai in the figure's hand froze Ryoku as he felt the chill of fear settle upon him. Then he noticed the hesitation of the figure and saw the kunai shake in its grasp. This spurred Ryoku into action as he surged forward in an attempt to overwhelm and crush his attacker, to take advantage of its hesitation. Ryoku paused, gurgled horribly and slipped to the floor again as blood rushed out of the precise cut in his throat in a powerful spray. His last sight as his life slipped away from him and darkness crept over his eyes was the small shadowy figure with a dripping kunai standing above him as it was joined by two taller figures, and with his last bloody breath he heard the whispered words, "I'm sorry," as his life faded away. The samurai captain paused in his walk, his charge coming to a halt behind him along with the rest of his troops. The commotion ahead in the market was loud and would be hard for his soldiers to force their way through while maintaining the security of the client. He motioned to the left and the bodyguard detail made their way through a side street to bypass the hubbub in the market. A grubby street urchin peered up from a pile of rubbish and darted forward, hands outstretched on path to interrupt the walk of the richly garbed man in the center of the samurai guard. "Get lost, you little brat." One of the samurai blocked his path and punched the child viciously in the stomach. The kid doubled up and slumped over the samurai's arm, gasping for breath before collapsing on the ground. The man in the center coughed impatiently and the guard turned away from the child and caught up with the rest of the samurais, sparing a brief glance backwards to see the injured brat scuttle out of the alley clutching his stomach. He grinned to himself, amused by his petty cruelty, before a hissing sound caught his ear. He stared frozen in horror at the explosive tag smoldering on his arm before the powerful explosion ripped through the enclosed space of the alley. The samurai was obliterated in the blast, his shattered armor creating deadly shrapnel that tore through those closest to him. The two samurai standing next to him had no chance as their armor was pierced by the shrapnel. The remaining 6 samurai stumbled to their feet, groggy from the explosion but protected from the rest of the blast by their thick armor. A few bled from where stray shrapnel had gotten through, but they would all live. The same could not be said for their client, who lay in a bloody heap against the alley wall where he had been tossed by the explosion, charred and bloody from the fire with a large chunk of shrapnel embedded in his temple. Hours later, a young boy walked out of the town accompanied by 2 merchants who threaded their way carefully through the crowds before disappearing in the woods. The 3 ninja darted swiftly through the trees, their footsteps making only the slightest noise as they launched from branch to branch using carefully controlled bursts of chakra. Their mission was done and now they returned home to Taki for a long rest before their village next called upon their skills. The lead ninja ducked, acting on his instincts honed through years of combat, a kunai-wielding ninja landing where he had been moments ago. His 2 companions were not as lucky, both felled by a surprise attack from 2 other kunai-wielding masked ninja. The tacky nin jumped back, his hands flashing rapidly through seals as he assessed the battlefield. His companions dead with their attackers standing over their bodies, one short, one tall, both dressed in camouflage that blended with the trees. And there, the ninja who had missed his attack dressed the same coming at him, a tanto drawn back ready to strike. The tacky nin released his jutsu and exhaled a fiery dragon that crashed straight through the onrushing ninja who had no time to dodge. There were no screams as the charred body dropped to the forest floor as the dragon continued and curved its way round to target the remaining ninja. The tacky nin prepared to fall back into the trees as he watched his jutsu crash down on where the enemy ninja were standing. A fireball exploded with fury and the tacky nin felt the heat on his face before he made to retreat into cover. Blood bubbled from his lips as he found himself unable to move, unable to feel his body. His gaze slid downwards into the clear blue eyes of the short ninja before him whose tanto was sheathed in his chest. The short ninja wiped his blade clean as the body of the enemy fell to the ground. His partner finished performing a swift doden jutsu that buried the bodies of the other 3 fallen ninjas and joined him. Together they jumped back into the trees and disappeared into the foliage. The merchant entered the inn, flanked by his guards, whistling a happy tune to himself. His business was booming and his caravan was loaded with goods that would fetch a tidy price in Kumo. He also had hidden on his person sizable sum of ryo that had made their way into his possession from his other business. It was a nice subsidy to his regular income each month and all he had to do was pass on a scroll he was given each time he left Konoha. His business gave him the perfect cover to carry out a little light espionage on the side and the treatment he got back home didn't hurt his finances either. Sitting down at the bar he ordered from a pretty waitress and grinned and held his hands up in mock surrender when she glared at him for leering at her petite form. He left the inn satisfied and continued his journey, while later that day at the end of her shift the pretty waitress walked out of the inn into the dark woods. If anyone had been watching closely they would have seen her vanish with a slight pop and puff of smoke to reveal a short figure clad in dark blue that then disappeared into the gloom of the underbrush. 2 days later while sitting down for dinner with a local dignitary in Kiri to discuss the increase in taxation on watercrafts he collapsed face forward into his bowl. Though his guards rushed to his side they were of no use for his death was guaranteed the moment he had let the pretty waitress serve his food. When the staff at the country inn missed their colleague for the 2nd day the head chef went round to her house to check on her. He was horrified to find her lifeless body hanging from her ceiling. The death was written off as a suicide by the local authorities despite the protestations from family and friends that Kimiko would never have done such a thing. The suicide of a waitress in Fire Country and the poisoning of a merchant in Kiri were never connected. The genin team was tired and dirty. Their dreams of rescuing princesses and defeating bandits had been swiftly crushed after a month of mindless chores with their Junin instructor who was currently grinning at his charges recollecting with fond memories her own time as a genin in Suna. She turned and bowed respectfully to their client. "It was a pleasure to help you, Mika-san. I'm sure my little students are honored to milk your goats," she said to the crippled woman who had come up behind her. Mika smiled kindly at the young Junin and waved her one remaining arm at the grumpy kids in front of her. "Please Kunoichi-san, I'm sure these kids don't know or even care whose goats they're milking. I'm sure they just can't wait get home." She was glad these young ninja didn't know who she was or what she had done and hoped they would never have to experience what she had in the wars that had been fought when she was younger. "I'm sorry to say that you're probably right about that. Kids these days, no respect for their elders or history," the Junin said while mock scowling at her team. "Alright guys, let's head back and collect our pay for this mission." Mika watched the team head down the road before shutting the door and turning to put away the churns of milk. She found it difficult to milk the stubborn creatures with only one arm and it was always nice to have company in her lonely home. As the sun set on Suna, Mika awoke with a jolt in on her sofa where she had fallen asleep earlier. She looked warily around, uncertain of why she had awoken but uneasy for some unknown reason. Her dreams had not been pleasant, another one of the war, bodies and death, not what she wanted to remember. She sighed. Despite her retirement her instincts had not dulled and trusting her instinct she rolled off the sofa just in time to avoid a vicious blow that would have connected with her head as a dark figure attacked from the ceiling. Catching the leg of her assailant as they fell, Mika twisted and flung the attacker across the room before springing to her feet, her arm instinctively grasping for a kunai from the pouch that wasn't on her leg. Her attacker recovered swiftly and raced across the room to attack her once again. She caught a hand grasping a kunai as it was swung at her side, pulsing chakra into the hand to sever the tendons that grasped it, allowing her to twist it out of the attacker's grasp and onto the floor. She threw her knee into the attacker's chin, causing them to stumble, giving her time to recover the fallen kunai. She brought the blade forward to skewer the still disorientated assassin just as they looked up into her eyes. Mika gasped and for the first time took in the sight of her would-be killer. It was a child, a young boy. Blue eyes gazed up into hers and she paused in her attack. This gave the boy an opening which he took full advantage of. A powerful kick to her knee caused it to shatter, tumbling Mika to her knees, and as she opened her mouth to cry in pain, a fist to the abdomen winded her and robbed her of breath. As she lay gasping on the floor, struggling to restore air to her lungs, the boy delivered two swift jabs to her neck that sent her whirling into unconsciousness. The boy raced across the desert, his feet making no sound as they glided over the dunes, eating up the miles with a steady pace. A bound woman slung across his back, dwarfing his already diminutive stature. Once past the border, he met up with another two ninja who were handed the prisoner before he raced off again in another direction. The third Hokage relaxed in his palanquin, smoking his favorite brand of tobacco as the procession made its way out of the capital of the Fire Country. His meeting with the daimyo had gone well and he looked forward to returning home after a trying month of talks and negotiations. It would be a week before he arrived back in Konoha and he hoped all was well. Right after he had left, a prominent member of the Yamanaka clan had gone rogue, stealing several clan scrolls and killing two of his own family. An ambush squad had been dispatched to track him down, but they had failed to report back and he feared they were dead. He sighed. That would have to be dealt with when he returned. The Yamanakas were an important part of Konoha and it would not do to have their secrets revealed to their enemies. Sarutobi's thoughts drifted to his favorite ward, Naruto. He worried about the poor boy. Isolated and ignored by the village, the boy had become quiet and withdrawn. Even with the Hokage he was quiet and secretive. He hoped that the boy was well. Masuka Yamanaka panted as he ran away from the carnage behind him, fear lending him strength. His allies were being slaughtered as they tried to guard his escape, but he didn't care. What he had seen had sent him running in terror. He cursed loudly to himself as he came up short at the edge of cliff. Damn it, it had been going so well. After making his escape from Konoha, he had managed to make the rendezvous with the Kumo ninja sent to escort him back to Lightning Country with Konoha's Anbu hot on his trail. The 20 Kumo Anbu had been able to surprise and ambush the Leaf Special Forces and cut them down. They had made their way safely back to the border when another squad of unknown ninja has assaulted them. Masuka suspected they were from Root and he would be damned if he was taken back to that old mummy Danzo. Despite losing 5 men in the surprise attack, the Kumo nin swiftly gained the upper hand against the 3 Root members, isolating them before taking them down with their superior numbers. They had managed to take out 2 of the members when it had all gone wrong. Masuka had struck out at the remaining Leaf Ninja while the small figure was distracted by a vicious lighting jutsu. His mind destruction jutsu had connected and the figure had collapsed. It was a powerful and forbidden technique that splintered the victim's mind, leaving them a vegetable. As a Kumo ninja had moved in for the kill, transparent red claws had erupted from the boy and tore the 5 ninjas standing closest into shreds. Jianchuriki. Masuka had fought against the demon beast when it had attacked his old village and still remembered the terror he had felt. Allies forgotten, he had fled as the demon sprang up from where it lay and attacked the ninja with a vicious assault. All regard for personal safety forgotten as Masuka fled into the trees. Masuka panted and tried to regain his breath as he paused in his flight at the cliff's edge. It was quiet now. Perhaps the Kumo fools had managed to slay the beast? He prayed in his mind that this would be true. Piss dribbled down his leg as he shook in terror as the terrible figure emerged out of the darkness, soaked in blood, covered in vicious wound that dripped blood and impaled by kunai. Shuriken the demon walked towards him. A red cloak of demonic chakra bubbled out and swirled around his body, and as the beast drew closer he could see the wounds on his body closing up. Masuka's trembling fingers threw a kunai at the beast that made no attempt to dodge. The blade impacted with its body with a meaty thud but did nothing to slow its implacable approach. Too scared to move, he screamed in terror as claws made of the demonic chakra erupted from the figure and seized him in their grasp, searing his flesh as his life flashed before his eyes. The Anbu guard outside the Hokage's office shook in fear as their commander raged within. Several prominent ninja within were facing the old man's wrath, and they were glad that they weren't the subject of his anger. Sarutobi let out a weary breath as he slumped back in his chair. The ninja before him were of no use, and it would do no good for him to yell at them anymore. Waving his hand, he dismissed the trembling ninja from his office. How could this happen? He wondered to himself. Naruto Uzumaki had disappeared from the village, and neither hide nor hair of him could be found. He had been looking forward to seeing his ward when he got back to village, eager to see him enter the academy, hopeful that the friendly environment and socializing with others of his age would cheer up the poor boy. And now this. The boy had been missing for a week before anyone had cared enough to mount a search. The boy's disappearance was nothing new. He often disappeared for a couple of days, and the Hokage hadn't wished to disturb whatever peace the tormented child found, but this time it had been different. A returning team had come across a massacre on the border. Mangled bodies brutally mutilated and torn into shreds, whose few remains identified them as Kumo ninja. The most disturbing and worrying part was the severed head of Masuka Yamanaka mounted on a crude wooden spike, his face twisted into a terrified death mask. The genin on the team would need to see a therapist undoubtedly. No trace of Masuka's body or the scrolls were found, but the Junin instructor had found traces of the Kyuubi's chakra present throughout the gory battleground and saturated through the strewn body parts. Sarutobi was worried and scared for Naruto. If the Kaibui had been somehow freed or worse possessed Naruto, then who knew what would happen? The fact that Naruto wasn't present and no trace of him was found was both reassuring and worrying. He desperately hoped that Naruto would be found safe and sound and that there would be a logical and calm explanation for all of this that would make sense, but he feared it would not be. Wearily, Sarutobi pulled a piece of paper towards him and began to draft the order to look into Naruto's disappearance and a separate order for a search and retrieval mission. 3 years later, an Anbu patrol raced along the cliff top as the turbulent ocean crashed against the rocks below. Their leader carried a bound figure, a young boy clothed in dark blue pants and shirt with a mask covering his face. His wounds were terrible, and blood dripped from him onto the ninja carrying him. He was tightly bound by wire, and several seal tags locked his chakra away. Behind him, another ninja was carrying one of his comrades, a bird mask covering his face which was twisted into a horrifying scream, his body jolting awkwardly as it was carried. They had found the boy washed up on the shore further down the coast, barely breathing. They had seen the ninja gear and equipment he carried and cautiously investigated, worried about a possible trap. They searched his body and recovered several sealed scrolls that they were unable to open and found the horrific injuries on his body. Fearing that they would be unable to retrieve any information if the boy died and curious as to what such a young ninja was doing in such a place, the one Yamanaka with them decided to carry out a mind-delving to extract any pertinent information before the subject died. The bird-faced ninja was a skilled member of the Yamanaka clan and experienced in his clan's signature jutsus, and he formed the few seals he needed to carry out the jutsu effortlessly. As soon as he was done, the other members of the Anbu squad knew something was wrong. The boy's body began to shake and his chakra, which had been barely there before, started to surge within his body and change. Buzzard, the Yamanaka who had invaded the boy's mind, let out a hideous scream and threw himself back from boy. As his colleagues rushed to his side, they could do nothing as he continued to shriek and claw at his face, drawing blood as he gouged out his eyes. Boar and Cat grabbed his arms and tried to restrain him, but were barely able to hold his arms down as he arched his back and frothed out at the mouth. He stopped and went limp, his breath emerging in ragged gasps. He did not awaken. The remaining Anbu drew their weapons and jumped away from the prone boy, dragging their comrade with them. They stared at the boy in astonishment and fear as red chakra began to slowly ooze out of his skin and bubble around him. The older leader of the squad recognized the feeling, the strange chakra, and in a flash, trained instincts overriding his fears, he leapt forward and sprang on the boy, ignoring the pain as the chakra burnt through his clothes and began to eat away at his flesh. He slapped a special sealed tag down on the boy's chest and jumped away to watch the result. The seal was a special Anbu-only issue that completely sealed away the target's chakra. It was expensive and difficult to make, but very effective. He breathed a sigh of relief and signaled to his team to stand down as the red chakra receded into the boy's body. He knew who this was. He recognized the chakra, having felt it 12 years ago when in Night of Terror and Blood Konoha had nearly been destroyed. Their squad would have to return the child back home. He was sure the Hokage would be interested in what the boy had been doing for the past 3 years. Are you sure about this? I'm sure. You know why I had to do this. But why you? You've seen what it did, what it can do. Inoichi. He's just a boy and I'm the only one who can do anything to help him. Think of Ino. Think of Shikaku's and Chosa's kids. I've got to give him the chance. You know this. I'm sorry, okay? It's just you saw what happened to Ko. It's just I don't want you in danger, darling. I know, but this is what I do and trust me, I will be in and out before you can know it. Okay, I'll be right here besides you, Nariko-in. Inoichi turned to the grinning figure on the floor, bound by wooden shackles and covered in seals. If this psychotic little fucker does anything, then I will fry your brain. Inoichi said the last part to the unflinching, emotionless face of the boy in the center of the room, ignoring the slap on his arm from his wife by his side. The boy didn't even flinch as Inoichi took a step towards him before an Anbu stepped forward and laid a hand on his arm to check his path. Inoichi, calm down, barked the Hokage, rising out of his seat, his face hidden by shadows. Anger and frustration were both present in his voice, but so was tiredness that weighed down his entire body. But his voice still carried the power of his youth, and Inoichi stepped back. I'm okay, it's fine. Let's just get this over with, okay? The Hokage nodded and resumed his seat, clasping his hands together in front of him and leaning back in his chair. The Anbu retreated back to join his fellows in the shadows around the room, blending in with the darkness. Inoichi and Nariko stepped forwards to the center of the room, stepping around the carefully drawn seals on the floor, making their way to the boy in the center. Bound by sealed wooden shackles on his wrists and ankles, he was fastened securely to the floor where the seals ran up from the arrays on the floor and onto the shackles. A masked ninja sat opposite him, arm outstretched in a pose of concentration. Taking their places on either side of the prisoner, the two Yamanakas placed their hands on the boy's head. Nariko's underneath and Inoichi's on top. As Inoichi placed his hand atop of his beloved wife, he looked up. In and out, right? I'll be waiting to pull you out the minute you call. Don't take any unnecessary chances, and if you feel at all in danger, just run. Don't stop and think, just get out. His hand tightened on hers, pushing it into the blood mop of hair on the bound boy. I will, darling, don't worry. This is what I do and I'll be fine. Inoichi cupped his face with his free hand and leant forward. I love you too. Nariko smiled and nodded at the medic nins surrounding the seal array. Chakra channeled from the medic nins through the seal array hit the seals on the wooden shackles, and his head slumped forward as he fell unconscious, deep in artificially induced sleep. The seals lit up as the chakra converged on the two hands resting on the slumped head, and as Nariko's eyes rolled up into her head and her eyelids closed, the last image she saw was Inoichi's anxious face. The Hokage watched as Inoichi and Nariko both went stiff as their eyes glazed. Good, the jutsu had taken hold. It was a tricky one to use, with complete trust needed between the two ninja conducting it. Thankfully, the Yamanaka couple was the best, although after what had happened to Buzzard, their cousin, he was glad nothing had gone wrong. Unlike the invasive and forceful jutsus most commonly practiced by the Mindwalker clan, this collaborative jutsu was much gentler, with one ninja providing the gateway and chakra to access the patient's mind, while the other ninja allowed their mind to be guided through the patient's own. It relied heavily on the patient's cooperation, and as such could only be used in a non-hostile environment, and so was used by the Yamanaka clan for therapy and mental healing. Hopefully Naruto would cooperate, and although Sarutobi had both the boy's word and Danzo's own word and reassurances that Naruto would behave, he was still worried for the outcome of this jutsu. Damn that man. Curse Danzo to the 9th river of hell for what he had done. The Hokage had not wanted to choke the life out of someone for a long time, but right now he was seriously considering putting out Danzo's other eye. Sarutobi thought back to earlier that day when he had received word that Naruto had been found. The startled ninja jumped as the Hokage appeared beside him. Only a few ninjas were authorized to use Shunshin in or out of the TI building, and the Hokage's sudden arrival had surprised him. Hokage-sama, We weren't expecting you so soon, we have only just finished restraining the prisoner, sputtered the poor Ti Nin tasked with greeting their commander. Restrained? Who gave orders for the boy to be imprisoned? Growled the Hokage angry and worried. I did, Hokage-sama. Ibiki spoke as he came out of the cell behind him, carefully shutting the door. The boy is a danger to himself and my team. I had no other option but to restrain him. Sarutobi looked questioningly at his top interrogator, and before he could ask the obvious question, Ibiki answered. He regained consciousness fairly quickly after we began treating him. He attempted to gather his chakra and attack the medics working on him, and when the seals reacted and threw his chakra back, he tried to take his own life by biting his tongue. Sarutobi gasped. He couldn't imagine what had happened to Naruto in the years he had been away from home. Ibiki, are you sure it's not the fox? Asked the Hokage. I'm sorry, Hokage-sama, but the chakra signature is definitely the boy's. The demon's chakra is present but sealed within. I have no option but to treat him as a hostile to the village. Judging from his behavior and the equipment he was carrying, I would say that he has been recruited by another village and trained heavily in the shinobi arts. Although how they managed to do so in secret is very worrying. Danzo, growled the Sarutobi, pardon Hokage-sama? Ibiki asked, confused. Never mind Ibiki, the Hokage said, I want you to make sure Naruto is safe and that nothing happens to him. Sarutobi paused in his orders and turned to leave, but as he prepared to go he finished. Ibiki? Yes, Hokage-sama? I want Naruto protected. I will be back soon, and if anything, and I mean anything, has happened to him, I will be holding you personally responsible, understand? Yes, Hokage-sama, Ibiki replied, wondering what was going on. Normally it was job to possess all the information, not left out of the loop. No matter, he would follow his leader's order and ensure that his mysterious guest's survival. Sarutobi shunshined back to his office, furious with his own neglect. Tiger, goat, fetch me Danzo immediately, and I don't care if you had to drag him out of bed. In fact, I would prefer him dragged. Go, he shouted as his personal bodyguard hurriedly left. 10 minutes later, a disheveled Danzo appeared in the Hokage's office, flanked by the two Anbu. Sarutobi noticed to his satisfaction that Danzo was still wearing his pajamas. Anbu, leave. The bodyguards swiftly left. Sarutobi activated the powerful seals in his office to ensure privacy for the discussion they were about to have. What is the meaning of this, Hiruzen? Questioned Danzo, uneasy at the abrupt summoning, although he suspected what this might be about. You did not get to be an old shinobi without keeping your wits about you. Cut the bullshit, Danzo. I know it was you. I may not be able to prove it, but by hell or high water I will make you pay if you don't tell me the truth right now, damn it. Spat Sarutobi through gritted teeth. The truth? The truth? Don't make me laugh, Hiruzen, you couldn't handle the truth. Danzo retorted. It's always been me, in the shadows, doing the work your high and mighty ninja are too clean and pure to dirty their hands with. Me, protecting this village from the enemies that claw at our very walls that you're too damn stubborn to see. All I've ever done is protect Konoha, and that's all Naruto has done too. He's just a boy, you demented psychopath. A hero protecting this village who should have had a normal life, a life you denied him. You broke him, turned him into a tool. Sarutobi was standing, his knuckles white from where they gripped the edge of his desk, the wood cracking and splintering beneath the force he was unconsciously exerting. Killing intent swirled between the two ancient ninja, thick and heavy, in the small room. Me, a normal life. Age really has addled your brain, Hokage-sama. Danzo spat the honorific out of his mouth as if it was poison. The boy was never going to be normal. He was destined for something greater. The idiot villagers you love so much have made his life a misery. You're lucky he wasn't more fucked up when I went to him. It was me that helped. Gave him what he wanted, trained him and took care of him. He is damaged all right, but thank Kami that I managed to get to him before he could have become something worse, you sanctimonious old fool. The Hokage slumped back into his chair, the words like kunai striking his vitals. Lowering his voice he asked in a quiet tone, Explain, Danzo. Explain to me what happened to him. I have a right to know, do I not? Very well. Danzo lowered his voice also, I'll tell you what happened to Naruto. Hokage-sama, Hokage-sama? Sarutobi stirred out of his reverie to look at the medic Nin, anxiously tapping him on the shoulder. Hokage-sama, the jutsu was a success. Both participants' minds are stable and healthy, no problem so far, sir. Good, that's good. Thank you. The Hokage waved the anxious young ninja away. I told you Hiruzen, Naruto is perfectly capable of following orders. He is very loyal. Danzo muttered smugly from his post at the Hokage's side. As long as it was Danzo's orders that were being followed, that was. He wasn't overly worried about the outcome. His little chat with the Hokage earlier had ensured that he was safe. Blackmail was rather crude and simplistic, but hey, if it works then why not? He had let the Hokage have a very important piece of knowledge. Naruto was conditioned to be loyal to Danzo alone. On the order Danzo, or if he was captured with no hope of escape, then he would terminate his own life by any means possible to ensure the safety of Root and Konoha. Hiruzen had been furious that he had conditioned Naruto for suicide and had caught him by surprise when he had leapt from behind his desk and knocked him against the wall before starting to choke him. The old monkey certainly still packed quite a punch, an important bit of knowledge to remember for the future. Danzo had narrowly avoided a fight he had no desire to partake in by croaking out while being throat slammed into the cracking office wall that if he died then Naruto would again seek to end his own life. A bluff, but one that worked thankfully. He would never risk one of his most valuable subordinates killing themselves. That would just be silly. Sarutobi gritted his teeth in anger. He still really wanted to suffocate the old Cyclops with his own crippled arm, but alas he couldn't. Nevertheless, he was sure the plan he had fermenting in his mind would be a good way to get back at Danzo and ensure Naruto's safety. It just all depended on the outcome of the examination of Naruto's mind and what Nariko's analysis would be at the end of it. If she came out, Nariko's scream was cut off as a hand clasped tightly over her mouth. She went to struggle to throw the attacker, but a quiet voice hissed in her ear, "Quiet. Don't make a sound. You don't want it to wake up now, do you?" She froze and forced her body to be still when all she wanted to do was run shrieking away from this hellish place. She had seen some strange minds in her time, but her knowledge of this patient and what he contained made this one particularly terrifying. "Good," came the voice in her ear again. "I'm going to take away my hand now, and if you value your sanity then I would keep very quiet, not if you understand." Nariko nodded once swiftly and the hand that was covering her mouth was slowly removed. Fighting her urge to scream and run, she turned slowly, dreading to see whatever apparition had taken stand behind her. There was no horrid monster or blood-dripping ghoul behind her, and when she saw the figure in front of her she felt rather silly for her fear. The figure was an almost exact copy of the boy shackled on the outside, with only a few differences. His blonde hair that on the outside was a well-trimmed mess of spiky blonde locks was a much closer cut, while his eyes were a dull blue that seemed devoid of life. He was tall and clothed in dark black that appeared to swirl around his body, melding with the shadows around him. "That's good, you didn't scream. I take it you're the Yamanaka who's supposed to be taking the little tour through my head? Then again, I can't imagine who else would be here. Not exactly the most popular place," quipped the boy in a flat tone. "I've been ordered to show you around. I take it you're aware of my situation." I can talk?" Nariko questioned in a whisper. "It will be fine as long as you don't raise your voice," replied the boy. "So, you're the subconscious representation of Naruto, are you?" "Well, obviously, but not quite. I'm a part of Naruto's subconscious. I am just one part of his many different splinters of the mess that's Naruto's subconscious." "I thought they had told you?" He tilted his head to the side questioningly. No, I was told nothing about that? I'm not sure I understand what you mean. I've never dealt with any cases with multiple personalities before." Nariko was worried. She hadn't been informed about Naruto having multiple personalities. This was a disturbing development and she wasn't sure if she would be able to help him. "Ah, that makes things a little harder. Very well, I guess I will have to take care of the tour. What do you need to see?" "Okay, first what do I call you? I can't exactly keep calling you a part of the subconscious of the patient." "Call me Naruto, it's who I am after all, just a split of part of him." Quote, "Which part?" Nariko asked. "I'm composed of the disciplined, trained part of Naruto's mind. I'm the part of him that emerges when conducting missions. I have been trained hard to become a proficient ninja. I'm the dominant personality out of all the others. They're mostly repressed by my more dominant side. That's why you're seeing me now instead of the others. I've made sure that they won't be bothering us," replied Naruto. The cavern they were in continued to light up as the red glow spread until it reached the walls at the far edges. revealing a multitude of different-sized pipes from which liquid dripped down from them to fall into the lake with a gentle dripping. These pipes are all the different aspects of my mind. They feed into this central cavern and mix together. My conscious self is an amalgamation of all the different aspects. At times different parts flow stronger or weaker, and that affects how I behave. Explained Naruto. It's complicated, I know. So each of these pipes contain a part of your subconscious? Asked Naruto. I've heard of schizophrenic minds being portioned into separate parts, but I've never encountered it before. So do each of these pipes contain another version of Naruto like you? That's correct. Each of the pipes lead to a different aspect, each inhabiting their own mental space. Which one's yours? Naruto turned and pointed behind him to a large pipe filled with darkness from which a steady stream of liquid poured out. Can we go inside? Asked Naruto nervously, amazed at the complexity Naruto's subconscious had been able to develop and scared as to what had caused such an immense aberration from a normal mind. You're the shrink. Wherever you want to go, I've been ordered to take you. However, make sure you stay by my side. Some of the other Mies can be dangerous to be around. He motioned for her to follow him, and together they splashed their way to the pipe. Naruto was worried about his mention of danger, but her duty as a doctor compelled her to follow this boy, and her own curiosity wanted an insight into the workings of this fractured mind. They made their way down the pipe, the splashing footsteps echoing in the rusted metal of the large pipe as they walked through the gloom. Neither said a word as the Y walked side by side through the dark. Naruto was nervous, unable to see ahead in the dark. Just as Naruto opened her mouth to ask Naruto a question, but as she did she saw a light ahead growing in the darkness. The light was soon revealed to be the exit of the tunnel, and Naruto picked up her pace to hurry out of the tunnel's creepy gloom. She gasped in surprise as she came out in the light and blinked her eyes as she was dazed by the sudden change. She and Naruto came out into a large room, plain and empty with gray walls and floor. There was no furniture or any kind of decoration in the room. The only things in the room were a small meditation mat in the center of the floor and many large filing cabinets lining the walls. As you can see, I keep a very clean mental space. These filing cabinets contain memories and other parts of my personality. I'm sorry, but many of these memories are classified. However, you are more than welcome to examine any memories from before my induction into the Ninja Corps. They are a bit limited, but go ahead. Offered Naruto, indicating the cabinets lining the walls. Thank you, Naruto, said Naruto. I don't want to impose on you or look at anything you don't want me to. I'm here to help, not pry. You're my guide, so it's your choice as to what I see. Naruto had no desire to force her patient not to do anything he didn't want to. It was her job to assess his mental state, and right now she was very worried by what she had seen. She unsure of what path to take with Naruto. Your mental situation is very unique, Naruto. It wasn't explained to me exactly how this happened. Is that information classified? Or can you tell me? It would help me immensely in your treatment if I had a better understanding. I'm allowed to reveal that information to you as part of the treatment. It is a rank information, so as long you do not tell anyone outside that clearance, then you should be fine. There was an incident during a mission hunting the missing nin Masuka Yamanaka. Naruto gasped. She had been busy when Masuka had gone rogue, but she remembered the panic it had caused when it was found that he had gone rogue. The news of his death had come. The entire clan had been intensely relieved that the secrets of their clan were safe, but when the scrolls he had stolen weren't recovered, the clan heads had remained very disturbed. To think that this boy had been the one responsible for his death and that of 20 Kumo elite. Your clan specializes in mind jutsu. Masuka used the scrolls he stole to learn several of your forbidden techniques. I was sent to retrieve those scrolls and eliminate Masuka. Unfortunately, the intelligence we received for the mission was flawed. While distracted by the ninjas sent to escort him, he managed to hit me with a particularly nasty jutsu of yours that targets the victim's subconscious, scrambling the neural pathways within the brain. It should have killed my brain and rendered me a vegetable. Thankfully, my prisoner in here had no desire to live in an empty sack of meat, so it decided to lend me a helping hand. It forced its chakra into my body, repairing the damage done to my brain. However, the healing wasn't perfect, and the split-up pathways in my brain resulted in the splintering of my personality into these different aspects. Naruto explained to a shocked and somewhat confused Naruto. It's a miracle you're even alive after getting hit by such a powerful jutsu, let alone able to function. I didn't think it was possible for anyone to survive a kinjutsu like that. She was impressed despite the horrific nature of his injury. From a medical viewpoint, Naruto was a walking miracle, and if it was the Kyuubi's power that was responsible for such a miraculous recovery, then its chakra must possess incredible healing properties. There were such fascinating possibilities. What else do you wish to know? Naruto asked, indifferent to Nariko's musings, snapping her out of the reverie she was in. You said you store your memories in these filing cabinets? That's correct. Are there any in particular you wish to see? Naruto's voice was flat. Are there any of your earlier memories in here? I would be interested on seeing what happened in your early childhood. Nariko shook herself out of her thoughts and tried to get back on topic. No, this aspect of Naruto only really emerged after I was inducted into. Well, I'm not sure I should talk about that. If you wanted to see more about when I was younger, then you would have to see another aspect of me. If you wish, we can go and see him if you have got everything you need here. That would be good. This area of your mind seems to be very well organized. It speaks well for your sanity that you've managed to keep this part that well maintained. Nariko said, pleased that Naruto was so cooperative. She was feeling optimistic about the outcome of her patient's examination. Naruto just nodded and turned to lead her back the way they came through the pipe. As they entered the pipe and the darkness enclosed them once again, their footsteps echoed in the gloom as the room faded away behind them. Neither Naruto or Nariko bothered to look back. As they disappeared into the pipe, the rooms began to change. The plain walls started to peel, paint flaking away, to reveal cracks and holes which seeped a thick black liquid that oozed over the floor. They made their way out of the pipe and back into the main chamber. Together they splashed slowly across the main chamber. Nariko paused in their silent journey as a sound reached her ears. A low steady rumble filled the cavern, a soft roar like that of a giant snore. Is that? Nariko whispered the question as Naruto paused momentarily before replying. Yes, it's sleeping currently. It spends most of its time sleeping, lazy demon. Scoffed Naruto. Does it talk to you? Sometimes, but it's mostly a whole bunch of nonsense about death and murder. Don't worry, I don't listen. I've undergone training to control it. Is it safe? Yes, as long as it's asleep it can't do any damage. It's when it wakes up that it starts wreaking havoc. He really hates it when someone invades my mind. Yeah. Nariko gulped and hurried to catch up with Naruto as he continued his brisk walk towards another large pipe set in the crumbling cave's wall. She cast a worried eye on the caged darkness at the other end of the cavern, hoping that the steady snore of the sleeping demon wouldn't change. They reached the pipe and stepped inside. The liquid coming out of this one was barely a trickle, dripping slowly out the mouth. With no water to splash through, their footsteps clanged on the pipe's side, sending echoes up its length. Their journey through the dark was much shorter this time, emerging into blinding sunlight on the other side. Nariko stared in awe. Before her was the entire village of Konoha laid out before her from where she and Naruto had emerged from the pipe and right onto the top of the Hokage monument that overlooked the village. This is incredible, it's just, I don't know what to say, amazing. She was truly amazed by the sight before her. The complete village lay ahead, recreated picture perfect. The only clue she had that this wasn't the actual village was that instead of the thick leafy forest that surrounded and protected Konoha, there was only empty desert stretching out as far as the eye could see. Konoha was a precious gem of green trees and red and yellow houses and signs. It really made her appreciate the beauty of her home. It may look impressive, but I should warn you, the aspect that lives here is very simplistic. I would call him an idiot, but that would be a compliment. I would say that the entire situation I'm in is the result of his naive and foolish behavior. Kami, I wish he didn't exist. I've tried multiple times to erase this part of me, but unfortunately he keeps turning back up. Naruto showed emotion in his voice for the first time since Nariko had arrived. She was so engrossed in the incredible sight before her eyes that she had almost not heard what he had said. Wait, back up a second. You tried to erase him? How is that even possible? You shouldn't be able to destroy part of your own mind, or even try for that matter. It is difficult, I will give you that, but it can be done. Before the Masuka incident, I successfully removed many aspects of my personality that were hindering my work as a shinobi. It was only after that cursed jutsu that they came flooding back. Some I've managed to get rid of again, but this one is particularly stubborn. Stupid Gaki. Muttered Naruto, glaring into the village. Nariko was so shocked by what she had heard that she didn't see the target of Naruto's stare until it was nearly upon them. Running frantically, bouncing excitedly would be more accurate, towards was a tiny figure coming up the mountain face. Unlike the boy standing by her side with his plain outfit and emotionless demeanor, the tiny figure coming at them was clad in bright orange with a shock of bright blonde hair flapping madly as he converged on them. "Hey, I never get guests here. Oh my god, this is so awesome. Who are you? Where you from? What are you doing? What's the deal with Grumpy over there accompanying you? Are you even here? Is this real life?" The garbled burst of noise came from the tiny boy who had reached the summit and proceeded to jump madly around Noriko, who was overwhelmed by the sudden barrage of questions. "What aspect are you?" she asked a little unsteadily, glancing over at her emotionless companion to see an irritated tick on his face as he glared at the orange wonder dancing around before them. "Aspect? What you talking about? I'm Naruto Uzumaki. Pleased to meet you, and I'm gonna be the next Hokage. Believe it." "Oh shush Grumpy. You're talking nonsense again. What's ya name, lady?" asked the chibi blondie. "Grumpy?" questioned Noriko, suppressing a giggle at the sight of the titchy blonde chastising her stern guide. Despite the situation, she couldn't help but want to laugh at the absurdity of the sight before. She had seen some messed up minds, but this one definitely took the cake. "Yeah, I call him Grumpy 'cause he never cracks a smile and he's always frowning. He's a meanie, but that's okay 'cause one day he's gonna have to call me Hokage and listen to me for a change." Chibi Naruto exclaimed in a yell, all concepts of peace and quiet lost on him. Grumpy pinched the bridge of his nose in exasperation and annoyance, fighting back an urge to strangle the little moron in front of their guest. The idiot's punishment would have to wait until after Noriko left. Noriko let a laugh escape from between her lips, unable to hold in her mirth at the two Narutos. "I like it, Naruto. I think that Grumpy suits him perfectly. My name's Noriko and I'm just here to visit. Would you mind showing me around?" "Grumpy has already given me a quick tour, but I would love for you to show me around." She crouched down to look into the small boy's bright blue eyes that peered eagerly into her own. This version of Naruto was more like she remembered from his thin file that she had read as part of her briefing before entering his mind. The boy before her would have fitted in anywhere in the village, his blonde hair and aquamarine blue eyes creating a cute little bundle of joy that made her want to scoop him up into her arms and smother with hugs. Grumpy turned his cold gaze onto Noriko at this pronouncement and uttered in a withering tone, "I brought you here to see this aspect at your request. I will warn you again that this aspect is a moron. However, you are responsible for your own actions and my only responsibility is to ensure your safety and make sure you have the full cooperation of my subconscious." Chibi Naruto turned and stuck out his tongue, making Noriko giggle again in amusement. "Come on Noriko-chan, let's ignore Grumpy and I'll show you my home," he asked, looking up with eager eyes and an excited smile. "Sure Naruto, that sounds great." Noriko smiled kindly at him and took his outstretched hand as he led him away down a path carved into the side of the mountain and down into the village. Grumpy trailed behind, keeping a close watch on the pair. They made their way down the thin path carved into the mountain face, the path shimmering into existence before them and fading away behind them, freaking out Noriko at this strange experience. "What is that?" she asked nervously. "We have the capability to change our mental space, shape it to shape our needs. This path is a convenient way down the mountain, and so it was created, and when we no longer need it, it fades away. All of our collective mental space is malleable, we can shape it however we need," replied the serious Naruto aka Grumpy. "What you talking about Grumpy? Come on Noriko, I'll show you my place, it's super special awesome," Naruto exclaimed as they reached the bottom of the path, and arrived at the outskirts of the replica Konoha. Standing in the outskirts of the village at the bottom of the Hokage monument, Noriko noticed how the replica village of Konoha started to look different close up from its real-life counterpart. The streets and houses seemed to blend together, lacking distinction and definition. Looking closely at the buildings, Noriko saw how the designs and colors repeated themselves in the building patterns. It was difficult to notice. As soon as she looked away for a minute, the streets changed subtly, buildings shifting and moving, changing colors. It was difficult to keep track of where they were in the village, so Noriko gave up trying to keep her bearings and concentrated on following the blonde boy who scampered down the street ahead of her. She couldn't help but smile at the happy child before frowning as she realized where she was and the situation that the boy was in. As she traveled deeper into Konoha, things began to change. Gone were the colorful streets of shifting buildings. Instead, the architecture took on a bleak style. Gray blocks of buildings made up the city, throwing long shadows into the previously sunny streets. Naruto lapsed into silence as they entered the dark streets, retreating to stand closer to Nariko and the other Naruto's side. "Hurry up," he whispered. "I don't like this area, it's not nice." He slipped his small hand into Nariko's and grasped it tightly as he tried to drag her along at a faster pace. Nariko looked questioningly at Grumpy, wondering about the sudden change. Even though Naruto's mind was a unique environment, the sudden change of atmosphere in the village in Naruto's mind was definitely not a good sign. "Like I said, he's an idiot. He lets his own fears influence his mental space instead of controlling it, an idiot," stated Grumpy, watching Chibi Naruto contemptuously. As they continued into the shadows, people began to emerge from the side streets. Indistinct shapes in the distance became clearer, taking on the shape of men and women. Nariko was surprised as Naruto's grip on her hand tightened even further and he huddled closer to her as he gave an urgent tug on her hand. Nariko looked closer at the mass of people that had emerged from the shadows, of all different shapes and sizes, adults and children. They filled the sidewalks, seemingly going about their business, perfectly imitating their counterparts in the outside. Naruto walked close to her side, head down, shoulders slumped. Nariko wondered what was going on until she took a closer look at the people thronging the streets. Despite the mass of people bustling through the streets, they produced no noise at all as they went about their way. Although the streets were overflowing as the people made their way back and forth, imitating their counterparts on the outside, Nariko couldn't see any faces in the crowd. The people had no faces. Nariko gasped in horror. Where their features should have been there was nothing. Blank skin instead of eyes and mouths and noses, nothing there. The blank faces turned her way at the noise before ignoring her and continuing on their way. Nariko was thoroughly freaked out and jumped when she heard Naruto's quiet voice beside her. "They ignore me," said the boy in a muffled voice. "They always ignore me. Please don't ignore me too?" he questioned in a dejected tone that made Nariko want to bend down and hug him. "No Naruto, don't worry, I won't ignore you, I'm here for you," replied Nariko truthfully. Despite herself she couldn't help but start to feel attached to the boy. He was just so normal but at the same time damaged. She felt incredibly sorry for what had been done to the boy to cause such a horrifically damaged mind. Naruto squeezed her hand again in thanks as they continued down the shadowy streets, ignoring the faceless people as they were in turn ignored by them. After several minutes of walking they cleared the dark streets and emerged back into the sunshine on the streets at the center of the city. After the dark, the shifting nature of the sunlit buildings was a welcome change. Nariko began to see buildings that were familiar as they made their into the center. There was the Ninja Academy, a building she recognized from her own times there. The hospital loomed menacingly on the right and ahead the Hokage Tower rose tall above the city, gleaming bright above the rest of the shifting buildings. Naruto had cheered up considerably on seeing the tower, letting go of Nariko's hand and sprinting ahead, his frown turning into a happy smile, the blank faces of the crowd behind them seemingly forgotten. "Idiot," grunted the older Naruto from Nariko's side. "We have control over the structure of our mental scapes, but some of us don't have enough self-control or willpower to enforce our will, instead letting their own fears and desires rule it. He's just a little boy. Perhaps, but he's still an idiot." Up ahead Naruto stood in the archway waving eagerly back, a wide smile on his face. The Hokage Tower stood unchanging, unpopulated and empty but exuding warmth that Nariko could feel as she approached, warmth that seeped through her skin lifting her spirits. As twisted and messed up as Naruto's mind was, this part was clearly a sanctum, a safe haven for young Naruto that sheltered him against the loneliness of his mind. She smiled as Naruto, glad that at least part of the poor boy's mind was a happy place for him. Naruto grinned back, not understanding why this lady was here but glad. "Welcome Nariko-chan, this is my precious place. Do you want to come in and play?" asked Naruto eagerly. Nariko peeked through the archway into the courtyard of the Hokage Tower. Battered toys littered the ground, and several stuffed toys were thrown around carelessly around the area. Nariko was loath to refuse the sunny boy, but she had to complete her mental assessment of the patient. She had no idea how much time she had left, but she had to complete her review and so sadly had no time to play with mentally stunted aspects of her patient's imagination. She dreaded her answer of no to the excited boy, fearing the results, but she had to get on with her mental tour to complete her evaluation. Nariko opened her mouth to deliver the crushing reply, when a welcome but surprising interruption came. Hey Gaki, what's kickin' little me? Who's the foxy lady there and why's Grumpy looking so miffed? A manic voice came from above, startling Nariko, who jumped at the sudden sound. Sitting above their little group relaxing on top of the archway was a tall lanky figure laying sideways on the arch, a single leg kicking idly to the side. Clad only in a pair of tight black pants that came down to his calf was he all wore except for a blood-red headband wrapped around his head that pushed back long spiky blonde hair streaked with red. His face turned sideways to grin down at them, his teeth sharp and pointy with long canines. The whisker marks on his face were thick and pronounced while his eyes were slitted and feral with bright blue iris with red flecks scattered around them. And he was grinning down at Nariko and both other Narutos with evil in his eyes. Naruto stepped forward protectively, pushing Nariko behind him, who was still shocked and a little scared by the sudden appearance of another Naruto. What are you doing here? I thought I made sure you understood that you weren't to come out. Growled Naruto in a menacing voice. Oh Grumpy, the other figure said the name with a malicious pleasure. You should know I can't resist a visitor to our humble home. Plus I kinda wanted say hi to the little Gaki here. The teen swung his other leg of the archway and dropped down to land and crouch next to the young Naruto. Nariko let out a small cry of fear and the sudden movement, and Naruto tensed. Little Naruto, however, didn't flinch. He just grinned a 1000-megawatt smile and grabbed hold of the teen's arm. Spiky, yay, you came to visit. It's great to see you again. Chibi Naruto yelled excitedly, jumping up and down as he clung to the other Naruto's arm. Spiky's grin widened even further, if that was possible, as he looked at the little blonde chibi grinning happily beside him and gently tousled his blonde locks, causing the chibi to momentarily frown before smiling again. Be careful, this aspect is dangerous. He's the part that gets off on the violence and death. This part of me was badly influenced by the chakra of the Kyuubi when we had our little accident with Masuka. He's very violent and dangerous. Normally I keep him under control, but sometimes he gets out. Muttered the Naruto standing by Nariko's side, who was watching this scene with a mixture of confusion and worry. Ah, don't worry there Grumpy, I'm not going to bite. Spiky crouched down to sling an arm around the chibi's shoulders and gnashed his sharp teeth as the chibi Naruto giggled happily. So mind-fucker lady is here to see if we're gonna be put back on duty or put down? Well, don't worry about lil ol me. I'm just here to have a little gander at the hot lady. He licked his lips and flexed his nails, which Nariko just now noticed were very claw-like and sharp. Nariko took a step backwards before the threatening posture dissolved as he collapsed into a heap on the ground, laughing uproariously. Ha 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 ha, you should have seen your face. Priceless, classic comedy, it was a joke you dumb slubs. Come on, that was funny. This is Nariko-chan Spiky. She said she's here to look around and she's super nice. Grinned the little chibi, clearly amused by the antics of his threatening friend. Nariko couldn't help but smile at this, feeling less threatened by the second of the strange new Naruto that had arrived. To be honest, she was slightly amused by his antics and the fact that the Naruto standing next to her was visibly annoyed by the newcomer, if the tick on his eyebrow or clenched fists were any indication. So you're the Gaki's new friend, Nariko-chan, eh? Good on her, he needs a better friend than either me or Grumpy there can be. You don't want to trust that one next to you, eh? He's a tool, nothing else, don't forget that. A minion of that mummy. His speech was interrupted as a hard punch from Naruto knocked him back, sending him flying into the side of the Hokage building. Hey Grumpy, what was that for, you big jerk? There was no need to hit Spiky, you bully. Cried the chibi Naruto as he sprung up before being backhanded viciously, knocking him head over heels into the dirt. Nariko cried out, "What are you doing? Are you crazy? You can't assault your own mind." She couldn't understand what was happening. How could the mind attack itself so viciously? She knew that Naruto was a unique case, but what was happening before her was shocking and should have been impossible. The other Naruto picked himself out of the wall, growling viciously, his long hair hanging over his face, barely concealing a vicious snarl on his face, showing his elongated teeth while his eyes shone red from behind the overhanging hair. Don't touch the Gaki, he roared before charging at the Naruto standing over the prone form of the small boy, arms spread wide with his claws outstretched. He managed to catch his opponent off guard and caught him round the waist, driving him to the ground. Straddling his opponent's chest, he rained blow after heavy blow down into his face. Grumpy disappeared suddenly, leaving Spiky to smack the hard dirt beneath his fists. He looked up in time to receive a kick straight to his face that sent him spinning away. "Control yourself, you idiot. You'll ruin everything," roared Naruto to his counterpart. The other Naruto lifted himself up out of the dirt, growling, but made no move to attack. Nariko stood on the sidelines of the confrontation, too scared of what was happening to move. "Stop," croaked the chibi Naruto. "I'm fine, really. Grumpy hits like a girl anyway." As he lifted himself up onto wobbly feet, blood dripping from a nasty cut on his eyebrow. The other two Narutos eyed each other warily before they slipped into a more relaxed pose, still shooting daggers from their eyes at each other. "What were you doing? How can you attack your own mind like that?" questioned Nariko in a hysterical voice, feeling seriously out of depth in the boy's mind. "I apologize, Yamanaka-sama, but this aspect here was about to reveal information that you do not have clearance to know. I had to prevent him from continuing to speak, and the only way to achieve this was through violence. I apologize again that you had to witness this display. I had hoped we would be able to complete this tour without you seeing this aspect of myself. He is erratic and dangerous, and I had thought." Here Naruto paused to glare at the other Naruto, who was dusting himself of and deliberately ignoring the conversation. "I thought that he had understood what the consequences would be if he was to disturb us." "Why did you hit the boy then?" questioned Nariko, still shocked by what she had witnessed. "That was completely unnecessary, he was just trying to help." The boy was limping over to them, with a scrunched up face that looked as if it could burst into tears at any moment. Nariko couldn't help herself and instinctively went to him to try and comfort the hurt child. He flinched as Nariko reached out, but relaxed as her arms swept around him into a warm embrace before hugging fiercely back, determined not to cry. From where she knelt hugging the boy, Nariko squeezed him gently to comfort him and glared at the emotionless Naruto, while behind him the violent aspect of Naruto stopped scowling at his attacker's back and broke into a wide feral grin. "Isn't that sweet? Nariko-chan and little the Gaki sitting in a tree, kissim. What?" Noticing the glares, he once again dissolved into cackles of manic laughter, his fight and anger seemingly forgotten. "Idiot," said the other Naruto. The chibi being hugged by Nariko had blushed a deep red and squirmed his way out of her hug to scowl in what he no doubt thought was menacing but actually was rather cute, Nariko thought. A low rumble shook the ground and the blue skies darkened momentarily. They all looked up in time to see a jagged crack rip its way across the sky. "Damn it, you've stirred him up now," exclaimed a suddenly worried Naruto. "This isn't good. I'm sorry, Yamanaka-sama, but I have to go right now." He stared hard at the two other Narutos before bolting away suddenly, disappearing rapidly into the distance. Nariko stared after him, shocked by the sudden exit of her supposed guardian and terrified to be left alone with the feral Naruto. "Where are you going? What's going on?" she shouted after him to get no reply. "Oh, looks like Mr. Machine has left us all alone." Naruto grinned and began to walk towards Nariko, who shrank back from his advance. What to do? Nariko backed away until she couldn't get any further away and stopped when she felt the wall on her back, shrinking away in fear as Naruto slunk closer and closer, his blood-streaked eyes fixed menacingly on hers, lips drawn back over sharp teeth bared in a terrifying smile. Nariko tried to shape the necessary hand signs to cancel the jutsu connecting her mind to Naruto's, but her hands were grabbed and she let out a shriek and shut her eyes in fear, feeling hot breath on her face. "Nah, I'm just kidding. Oh, you should have seen your face. Priceless." Nariko was released and opened her eyes to see the laughing face of the teen who had been menacing her just a second ago. "Ah, come on, Nariko-chan, you should know I would never hurt a friend of Chibi-kun's. It was just a joke." OWWW. Naruto clapped his hands on his head as the little Naruto behind him smacked him on the head angrily. "Hey, don't play mean jokes on Nariko-chan. She's my friend," Chibi Naruto cried. The tension bled out of the air and Nariko relaxed slightly. "I'm sorry, Nariko-chan. I was just having my fun. Don't get many opportunities for fun in here, you know," Naruto said with a giggle. "What are you?" questioned Nariko. "Well, that's a good question. Fortunately, it's simple to answer. I'm Naruto, you dummy," exclaimed the teen, "and you're supposed to be here to help. Fancy not knowing that. You are a very strange part of Naruto's mind." Nariko was too confused to be scared and was completely unsure of what to do. They all froze as another rumble reverberated through the sky. "Okay, what was that?" asked Nariko, brought back from her musings by the noise. "That would be the Kyuubi. I think that our little fight stirred him a little from his nap time, so Grumpy just ran off to keep it from barging in her and reducing your mind to a nice slimy goo. Don't worry, he normally manages to keep it bottled up," said Naruto with a grin. "The Kyuubi? Wait, what do you mean normally? Is it going to break free? Hee. Don't fret your pretty head about it, Nariko-chan. Grumpy is very good at what he does, the bastard," muttered Naruto bitterly. "You know what? This is the perfect time to get away from that righteous bastard and give you a proper tour of my mind, and I mean a real tour. No holds barred behind the scenes kinda thing. Come on, what you say?" Naruto looked questioningly at Nariko as his chibi self, who had seemingly lost interest in the conversation and began playing with his toys in the dirt. Wait, what? What do you mean a tour? I don't. A tour? You really think that Mr. Root was gonna show anything of value? The emotionless dick is just going to give you the old whitewash like he was taught. Root? The old special branch of Anbu? I thought they were disbanded. Pualie's sweet cheeks. The old mummy has been carrying on behind the village's back forever. Come with me and I'll show you all the sweet little secrets that emo boy and mummy man don't want being seen. Tempting, huh? He grinned and beckoned to her before extending a hand tipped with sharp nails. Nariko was intrigued by the offer. The information she was getting just from this conversation not only provided her an insight into Naruto's mind but was giving her some interesting information that would no doubt be of value to the Hokage. She was giving serious consideration to his offer. What about the other Narutos? Well, Gaki here will be fine. Look at the little brat. He indicated to the boy in question, who was happily playing with a toad plushie, and as for the other one, well, he's probably gonna be gone for a while dealing with old Nine Tails, so we've got a while, and anyway he's not gonna dare lay a finger on you. Me on the other hand, well, come on, it'll be fun, he promised. I'm not sure. Nariko was hesitant to accept, worried about trusting this seemingly psychotic aspect of Naruto. I don't know how much time I have left in your mind, Nariko cried out as Naruto grabbed her by the arm and dragged her away. Stop, come on, you'll love it, I promise. With that, Naruto used one arm to claw at the air, renting a dark hole that he dragged Nariko through. The last thing she saw was the little blonde boy playing in the sunshine before she was pulled through the portal. They appeared in a dark landscape in the center of a crater surrounded by thick woods. Dark figures flitted through the shadows of the trees, menacing the two people at the bottom. What have you done? Where are we? Screamed Nariko in shock. Where they stood, there were bodies littered across the ground, torn into bloody shreds. Broken weapons stuck out of the ground while scars from jutsus carved chunks from the walls of the crater. The bottom of the crater was filled with blood, sticky, cold, congealing blood. Moving her foot in the disgusting pool, she felt something bump into it and screamed as a head with its eyes gutted out floated to the surface. She struggled through the pool and scrambled up onto the side of the pit and out of the blood. Oops, sorry about that, we didn't exactly come out in the right place, still it's always nice to visit old memories. Aw, good times. You maniac, what did you do? You can't just drag people through portals, you could have killed me. Nah, you're good. Anyway, I thought you wanted to see some of the good old secrets I've got tucked away in here. Welcome to my mind. Naruto cackled happily, splashing in the blood. Good memories of this place, check it. The old man sends me on my first mission after the whole mind-shattering thing by your buddy Masuka, and I'm all checked out and ready for action. Itching to get back to the whole rock'em shock'em business I do best. So I'm out in the woods, got my assignment to take out this big baddie from Iwa. Supposed to sneak into their camp and wait up a couple of days so that I can slip him a kunai in the skull nice and quiet like. And I'm lying there strapped to the bottom of cart that bringing supplies into the camp, lacks security, easy way in. So the Iwa nins are checking the cart and the driver. Lazy amateurs not bothering to check the bottom, usual stuff. And I'm thinking, why? Why bother? I'm fed up, bored, you know. I drop the cover act and go nuts, I mean just crazy. The enemy didn't know what hit him. It was hilarious. I dropped about 10 of the suckers before anyone clued on enough to counter-attack. They suck, I kill them. Rip straight through, blood everywhere. The big bad comes out and tries it on, he was actually pretty good. Managed to push me pretty hard, got some teamwork going on with his team and cornered me. There I was bleeding from where several nasty little rock spears had hit me, so I let loose. Let out this huge fireball, blew up everything. Blood and body parts everywhere. So awesome, the big bad is still alive but that's about it. He's standing there missing an arm and shaking like a leaf, but give the guy his due, still up for the fight. Naruto grinned manically, dipping his hand in the pool of blood at his feet, before licking his fingers clean. Nariko was scared but riveted by the story. I approach him real slow like, smelling his fear, and he just stood there shaking. The big tough Iwa ninja finally decides to run away, typical right? So to finish it off I rip out his spinal column. Classic huh? Naruto collapsed into the puddle of blood, splashing around while laughing. You're insane, said Nariko. How can you just laugh? You butchered those people. Yup, but awesome, he quipped with a happy grin, standing up, dripping in blood. If you're so incredible, then how come you were captured and dragged back? Nariko was interested in Naruto's history, and this aspect was very free with information. Ah, that's another story. Even the best make mistakes, and when you have to sprint across an ocean after fighting half the military might of Kiri, pursued by 20 hunter nins, I think I can be cut a break. There I was, doing this super top secret mission, the proper Black Ops stuff. I had infiltrated the land of waves searching for the bloodline camps set up by Yagura. I had my orders, course Danzo didn't trust me for any of the subtle stuff I used to do. The whole shadow in the night thing. After the accident I only got assigned to the messy shit. Bust in and knock some skulls of heads. The stuff I lubed to do all blood and guts. Get in, spill some blood, while a lot of blood. Get out and home free. The first part went well, lots of blood everywhere. It was the second part that went wrong. Got ambushed, twice. And then when I was bolting for home across the ocean, the hunter nins got me. Guess what I was carrying they really wanted back. What were you carrying? Nariko asked breathlessly. Ah, that's a special little secret that Danzo really wouldn't want me to share. Med doesn't matter. Guess I can tell you. I went into Kiri to steal several, nuts. Blood bubbled from his lips before he collapsed into the blood at his feet, his body disappearing before he could make a splash. What did you do? Cried Nariko at the stone-faced Naruto standing in the puddle holding a bloody tanto in his hand. The landscape collapsed around them. The dark skies and the blood-strewn crater vanished, leaving Nariko and Naruto standing in the cavern that she had first appeared in. The cavern shook violently, the water that covered the floor rippling. Get out, roared Naruto, clearly furious. You're lucky that I have been ordered to keep you safe and that your death would bring considerable problems. You have heard too much already from that dangerous psychotic, and if you had heard any more then I would have been forced to terminate you regardless of my instructions. Get out now. What did you do? You just killed him. You killed a part of your mind. You're insane. You're all crazy. How could you do that? I said get out now. The cavern shook again, this time harder, rocks falling from the ceiling to splash down in the water. From the cage at the end of the cave, something stirred in the darkness. Two huge red eyes opened in the black and Nariko screamed as a deafening roar filled the air and the darkness took her. Nariko. Nariko. Can you hear me? Answer me, Nariko. Are you okay? Nariko opened her eyes, her head pounding from a killer headache. Blurry shapes swam in front of her eyes that slowly began to become more distinctive and take a solid shape of her husband peering worriedly at her, his face creased in panic. Inoichi? Is that you? Oh Kami, it was awful? Nariko whispered, feeling weak, her head heavy and her mouth dry. Her chakra was drained, almost completely gone, leaving her feeble as a kitten. Relief washed over Inoichi's face, and as Nariko's vision cleared she saw the exhaustion etched in his face. Yamanaka-san? What are the hand signs for a standard leaf buncheon? Asked the medic nin kneeling by her head, his hands glowing green as they cradled her head. Let me think, rat, boar, monkey, ram? Nariko replied, disorientated. She's okay. The medic confirmed his analysis. Her chakra is depleted but the flow is normal and her brain is fine. Just some mild chakra exhaustion and fatigue, but otherwise she's okay, Hokage-sama. He said to the Hokage, who had risen out of his chair and was walking over. Turning her head, Nariko looked at the boy whose mind she had been exploring moments ago. Still bound by the wooden shackles, his head was slumped down, hair hanging over his face. She felt anger bubble up inside her. Noriko glanced over, reassured by the presence of her husband, and noticed the figure that had been standing by the Hokage's side. She struggled to get up, brushing of the medic Nin and accepting her husband's helping hand. She leant on him for support as her legs wobbled beneath her. Easy Noriko, take it slow, you're still weak. Inoichi cautioned her as he held her close to stop her from falling back down, his heart pounding in his chest from relief that his wife was okay. Noriko ignored her husband pushing out of his embrace and tottered on weak legs towards the Hokage, pointing angrily at the man behind him. You bastard, you had no damn right to do that to the poor boy. How could you? He was just a child and you destroyed him. She shouted at Danzo, who gazed indifferently at the angry woman. As she tried to reach him, to slap him, hurt him, do something to make him pay for what he had done. Her legs gave way under her and she fell into the swift arms of the Hokage, who supported her. That's enough Noriko, he said sternly but calmly, you are still weak and this is not the place for such behavior. Inoichi. He addressed her husband, who had rushed over to his wife's side as soon as she had fallen. The Hokage allowed Inoichi to take Noriko into his arms before continuing. I want Noriko brought to my office straight away. He held up a hand to forestall Inoichi's protests. She needs to brief me straight away on what happened. Yes, Hokage-sama, Inoichi replied grudgingly, holding his wife tight in his arms. Cat. Ensure that Danzo is comfortable until I am ready to see him. The Hokage turned to order the two Anbu, who took up positions on either side of the bandaged man. Danzo's face was expressionless as he allowed them to escort him out of the room. I want Naruto to be brought up to my office when he regains consciousness. Treat him well but make sure that he cannot escape. Sarutobi nodded to Inoichi and Noriko, who was still bubbling with anger, before sweeping out of the room, pausing at the door to say, I trust this goes without saying, but everything that has transpired in this room is to remain an S-rank secret and that no one will reveal this information to anyone without my permission? They all nodded, and thank you for your good work everyone. With that he left, leaving Inoichi and Noriko standing there in the sealed room while the other ninja who had taken part in the proceedings began to tidy away their work. Are you sure you're okay to see the Hokage? Questioned Inoichi. I will be. That poor boy, it could have been Ino, it could have been our girl. Muttered Noriko, hugging her husband. It'll be okay darling, things will be fine. Inoichi reassured her as he helped her out of the room. Noriko glanced back as they left the room at the shackled teen, 4 masked Anbu soldiers standing by his sides, and wondered what was going to happen next. Hokage's office. Sarutobi let out a deep breath. He couldn't recall when he had last been so angry or tired. The day's events had been very tiring. He wished that the Yondaime was still alive. It would have been impossible for something like this to happen. He hated being the one to send the young men and women of this village to their deaths. He had done enough of that in the last war. If only he had been the one who had died instead of the Yondaime. He pushed the morbid thought away and straightened in his chair to prepare for his next visitor. The meeting with Noriko had not gone well. The things she had told about Naruto's mind and memories had shocked him to the core. His rage at Danzo had been lost in his sorrow at what had happened to poor Naruto. He hated himself for not being more involved in the boy's life, not done more to be there for him, not taken more interest. And now the hero that protected the village had been turned into a broken weapon, reduced to a puppet for Danzo. Curse that man. Noriko had let loose a virulent stream of invective to express her feelings for the man who had trained Naruto that had reflected his own feelings quite well. He buzzed his secretary to send in the next group and prepared himself for what would probably be the worst part of the night so far. Kami, he hoped it was. It couldn't get any worse. Noriko leant on Inoichi's shoulder as she left the Hokage's office, feeling better for the rant that she had let out, despite Inoichi's embarrassment at her strong language. As far as she knew, her part in this affair was over. The Hokage had requested her help in assessing Naruto's mental state. She had delivered her opinion and more beside. Now it was over. She was relieved that it was over, but she still wanted to help Naruto, but that would be up to the Hokage to decide. Stepping into the lobby, she saw Naruto standing there, flanked by his 4 Anbu guards. Noriko looked at him, staring into his blank eyes that seemed to look straight past her. She shuddered at the look, remembering the rage in Naruto's mind before she had been kicked out. As she turned to leave, she saw Naruto turn his head and suddenly his face changed. His eyes lit up, gleaming a bright blue, and across his face a smile spread which he turned on Nariko's surprised face. She gasped, his face bringing back her memories of the happy little blonde Naruto playing in the sunshine beneath the Hokage tower in his mind. Then it was gone, his face resuming its blank state as though the smile had never happened. She continued to look back over Inoichi's shoulder as he shepherded her out of the building, intent on getting her to the hospital. The doors to the Hokage's office and opened, and the Anbu guard ushered Naruto through before they closed once again behind him. Sarutobi looked at the boy in front of his desk, standing rigidly to attention, his face wary. Danzo stood in the corner, comfortable in the shadows, silent. He had dismissed the guards and ordered Naruto unshackled, and now they were alone. "Naruto, do you recognize me?" the Hokage asked. "Yes sir, you are the Hokage of the village." "Yes I am, but do you remember me?" Naruto looked at Danzo hesitantly. "You are to answer all of the Hokage's questions truthfully and without reservation, that's an order," Danzo said, stepping forward out of the dark corner. Yes sir, I do remember you." "What do you remember?" "You used to visit me when I was younger. You would take me for food and bring me presents on my birthdays. You were kind." "That's correct." Sarutobi was disturbed by the matter-of-fact tone with which Naruto spoke. "I am worried about you, Naruto. Root is no place for a young child, and I'm concerned about how it affected you. You have been subjected to things that would be seen as extreme even by some of the most experienced shinobi in our village. From what I've been told of your activities, you are already an extremely skilled ninja, but it's not your skills I'm worried about. From what Nariko Yamanaka told me, I'm quite concerned about your mental state. Tell me, were you happy doing your work?" "Happy? My happiness has no relevance to the safety of the village." Sarutobi winced. He should have been expecting that. Root was infamous for its strict emotional training. He had heard of Danzo's methods and even seen a couple of examples, but to see it in Naruto was painful. "Okay, I'll rephrase that. Do you carry out your job well?" "Yes sir, I am a highly skilled member of Root and useful to the organization. I was able to carry out the missions assigned to me without failure even after the incident with the rogue Yamanaka." "Is that how you see yourself? As useful?" "Yes sir, I am. I was useful to the village." Naruto looked upset and focused his eyes on the ground. Sarutobi sighed. He didn't want to do this part, but it was his only option at the moment. Hopefully it would even be good for the boy. Still, he hated to use the boy. Damn Danzo and his scheming brain. The idea he had suggested had been good, but he still had in strong distrust for anything that man put forward. "Naruto, would you like to remain useful to the village?" asked the Hokage with a heavy heart. Naruto looked up, an expression of puzzlement and hope on his face that momentarily lifted Sarutobi's heart. "Hokage-sama, I thought that I had failed?" He glanced at Danzo looking for confirmation. "Naruto, every ninja experiences failure. It shapes us and helps us grow. I would like to give you another assignment," offered the Hokage. "Hokage sir, I would be honored if you saw fit to give me another chance. I only wish to be of use to the village sir. I would be honored if the Hokage and Danzo-sama allowed me to return to the Root." "Root?" The Hokage was startled, but he had anticipated this possibility. Root was known for its indoctrination. "I'm afraid that is not possible, Naruto. Understand that if you are to return, you will be serving me and not Danzo. You will swear your loyalty to me and the village and disassociate yourself from Danzo and Root." This was the tricky part, despite what had been arranged with Danzo beforehand. Naruto looked from Danzo to Sarutobi, unsure of what was going on. He was never given a choice. In Root you were given your orders and carried them out or died trying. This was new experience for him and he was very confused. He wanted to continue to be useful, but without Danzo and Root, what would he do? "Naruto, listen to me." Danzo spoke up. "This is what must happen. You're to accept the Hokage's offer and serve him from now on." "That is an order." Naruto nodded. Orders he understood. "I understand sir, Hokage-sama, I will serve you." Sarutobi hadn't wanted for Danzo to have to order Naruto into his service, but if this was the way it had to be, then. "Danzo, you had something else to say as well, didn't you?" "Ah yes." Naruto listened carefully. "I hereby give you an executive order. You're from now on to take orders only from the Hokage, obey his commands and carry out his commands to the best of your ability. Furthermore, you are, after acknowledging this order, to disregard any further orders from me or Root." "Acknowledge order," Danzo ordered. He had been very reluctant to let Naruto go, but Hiruzen had been quite adamant and he had other choice at the moment. It could even work to the village's advantage if Hiruzen decided to accept his proposal. A shame to lose such a skilled agent, but still it wasn't a complete loss. While security had been concentrated around Naruto during the mental assessment, two of his agents had managed to steal the scrolls Naruto had brought back without any problems. They would be a nice piece of compensation for the loss of Naruto as long the contents were still fresh. Naruto knelt before the Hokage, touching his forehead to the floor. I acknowledge the order and swear fealty to you. Hiruzen Sarutobi, Hokage of Konoha. It was done, thought Sarutobi. He wished it could have been done another way, but now that it was done, it was time to test just how honest Danzo had been. Naruto, thank you. I accept your service. So now you will obey my orders alone? Asked the Hokage, steepling his fingers into the evil pyramid of doom and leaning back in his chair and narrowing his eyes. Danzo also narrowed his eyes, wondering where this was going. He hadn't thought Hiruzen would accept just the word of him and Naruto and had anticipated some type of test, but what sort of test? Yes, Hokage-sama, I am yours to command. Good, now I order you kill Danzo, ordered the Hokage, pointing at the surprised man in the corner. Without hesitation, Naruto sprang to attack. Leaping across the room in a blur, he landed in front of Danzo and with a powerful kick launched him across the room. He prepared to follow up his attack, fingers weaving together in hand signs as he channeled chakra to form a powerful jutsu. Stop! Barked Sarutobi from his seat, stopping Naruto immediately, who let the chakra he had gathered for the jutsu dissipate and step back. Stand down, Naruto, that was a test. Danzo coughed as he brought himself back up onto his feet, clutching his chest where he had been kicked. Was that really necessary? Hiruzen, glaring at the Hokage, who let a smirk form on his face. I'm sorry Danzo, but I had to make sure. He turned his gaze to Naruto, who was standing at attention. Well done, Naruto. Sorry to test you, but I had to make sure that you would obey my orders, and I think it's safe to say that you passed. The Hokage couldn't help but grin at the sight of Danzo rubbing his chest in pain. Naruto, I have an idea of what your place in this village will be, but I have no first-hand information about your skill, only what others have told me. So before I assign you any duties, you will undergo a test so that I can properly your level. Can you first give me an idea of what level you're at? My level? I don't understand, questioned Naruto, addressing the Hokage directly, ignoring the wheezing Danzo behind him. I mean your skill level? Your physical prowess, jutsu skills, just give me an idea of what you can do. I am a trained member of the root, level has no relevance, you are either capable of completing the mission or not. All root members are given training relevant to their duties. I was prepared for a wide variety of missions, so my skills are also varied. Well, that's not very helpful. Hiruzen sent a glare at the still recovering Danzo. Very well, I will schedule an assessment of your skills. It will have to be soon, but you'll need time to recover. Hokage-sama, I will be perfectly capable of completing any test now. In the field we are not allowed to choose the timing of our encounters. Naruto stated. While that is admirable, Naruto, I insist that you rest. I have arranged accommodation for you to stay in now that you're a part of the regular shinobi forces. You'll be given 3 days to rest, after which you will meet me back here to undertake your test. Is that understood? Questioned Sarutobi. Yes, sir. Good, now I want you to leave. I have much to discuss with Danzo. There is an Anbu member outside who will escort you to your new place. I hope you will understand that for security reasons you will be confined to your home until you come back here. During that time I hope you will have recovered sufficiently for the test. You will be provided with rations that should be more than enough for your needs. Naruto, this is important. You must not leave your home or be seen by anyone other than the Anbu members, who will check in on you, and in 3 days they will collect you and bring you to the testing area. That is understood, Hokage-sama. Your concern for my well-being is unnecessary. With some sleep I will be fine. Nonetheless, you will do as I say. Now go, and I hope to see you again in 3 days under better circumstances. Yes, sir. Naruto bowed respectfully and turned to leave the office. Naruto, the Hokage said as Naruto reached the door and went to close them behind him. I'm sorry. Naruto just looked at him puzzled before settling for nodding his head and departing. The Hokage watched Danzo carefully. As angry as he was with the manner in which Danzo had treated Naruto, he was still an old friend. As odd as it seemed, their constant bickering and rivalry had benefited the village from the start of his rule. Danzo providing a valuable dissenting opinion in times when others would have agreed with the Hokage. Their unspoken agreement had strengthened and protected the village from its enemies, and now would not be the time to throw it away because of one boy. It was terrible what had happened to Naruto, and he sorely regretted not keeping a closer eye on the boy, but what was done was done. His rage at Danzo from earlier had dissipated. It was still there, but he had long ago learnt to control his temper. It would be of no benefit to publicly chastise Danzo now. He had no wish to expose Root and its various operations. Still, it had been a trying and long day. Now the two old men sat in the Hokage's office. Sotobi had assigned 2 Anbu members to watch him, but he was fairly certain that they would not be needed. But still, as Hokage, he had to ensure the safety of the village. "You're a lucky man, Danzo. If the Junins agree with your plan, then I won't be forced to remove your other arm," threatened Sarutobi half-heartedly. Danzo laughed, knowing the threat was empty. If they do agree, then hopefully Naruto will have a chance for some semblance of normalcy now he's not running around doing your dirty work, muttered Sarutobi as he smoked his pipe, gazing at his old rival who was seated opposite him. "You were always too soft, Hiruzen, that's why you still need me. And you were always a bitter old warhawk. I tolerated your indulgences with Root, but I can't believe that you had the nerve to take Naruto. I did what you wouldn't do, as always. He became a powerful asset to this village, dedicated and loyal. Did you really believe he had any hope of a normal childhood amongst the villagers? He would have grown up bitter and a danger to us all. He was destined for great things, and I did what I had to. You're a real bastard, Danzo. The plan may work out for the best, but you still went too far with the boy. Well, it's done now, Hiruzen, and hopefully he will still be able to serve the village despite your foolish ideas. Get out," shouted Sarutobi, angered by Danzo's arrogance. "Go now before I change my mind and have your head chopped off." Danzo got up and left, slamming the doors shut behind him, leaving the Hokage alone in his office as the first hints of dawn poked their way into the sky and through his windows. Sarutobi was tired and angry. He needed a solid night's rest. His entire body was sore and filled with aches. "I'm sorry, Naruto, but hopefully I will be able to make up for what has happened somehow," he thought as prepared to leave and finally go to bed. Naruto lay on his bed in his new apartment. Well, he supposed it was his now, thinking to himself. Trying to order his thoughts, it was all very well maintaining a professional demeanor whilst on a mission or around others, but when he was by himself he had to take the opportunity to let his mind relax. It was one of the first things that had been taught to him after he had been retrieved from the Yamanaka incident. It helped keep his mind calm and ordered. What a day. Lucky the Hokage hadn't decided to execute him. Guess I'm too valuable to get rid of yet. A shame he was no longer part of ROOT. Their missions had been good fun. Still not a complete loss on that front. The Hokage was sure to stop watching him closely eventually, and when he did, Danzo would contact him with new orders. The stunt in the Hokage's office wasn't unexpected. Danzo and him and made several contingency plans in the event of his capture, and it was quite fun to smack the old mummy around a bit. He chuckled to himself. That was the thing with Root, once you were in you never got out. I'll play around a bit in the village, be the perfect little ninja for the Hokage, and then back to black ops and assassinations. He itched for a bit of bloodshed. Ever since the accident it was like a drug, the feel of blood on his skin, the taste of an enemy's fear, so good. You, stupid mist ninjas, he had been free and clear of their borders when they had ambushed him. Why couldn't they have just let him go? He wouldn't have had to kill so many, not that he minded the killing, but not when it interfered with his mission. It had been his own fault. Hurrying to make his escape, he had run straight into a pair of mist nins returning from a mission. Random chance, and it had almost scuppered the entire operation. It would have been so much easier. A quick stop in the woods on the shore to recover his chakra, then a flat sprint to Konoha to slip quietly into one of the root bases. He would have dropped off his mission report, then been able to crash in a quiet corner somewhere. None of this mind rape bullshit that had been forced on him. Stupid Yamanakas. Seriously, who prances around in someone else's mind then expects them to be all cool with? At least the scrolls he had brought back were probably safe. The interrogation team would have opened them to find a nifty list of secret Kiri jutsus, an added bonus for them, but the real contents was hidden behind a special root cipher. He was sure Danzo would have retrieved them by now. He better have. Naruto didn't want all his hard work and pain wasted if the contents of the scrolls went off. It had been tough and bloody work to fill the scroll's special containers, but oh well, it was out his hands now. He tossed and turned on his new bed, unused to the soft feeling of a mattress beneath him. He longed to run and hide, find a secret place where no one could find him, but that wouldn't do. He was the Hokage's ninja now, and he could sense the presence of his watchers making sure he was at home. Just feeling, an instinct he had honed through many hard years, and he knew to trust his instincts. They had saved his life countless times. Naruto wondered what the Hokage's test of his abilities would be. A fight surely, maybe a mission. Nah, they wouldn't let him out of the village yet, so yes, a fight. How much to show and what to hide, that was the question. He would pass, no worries, but still. The possibilities of his future had opened up and he was eager to taste them. Anbu duty beckoned. It would be good to still be working with professionals. Surely that was where he was going, it was only logical. Still, the Hokage had sounded like he was worried about him. Maybe he had some harebrained scheme to try to assuage some misplaced guilt. Yeah, like appoint him as a Junin sensei for a bunch of students fresh out of the academy to teach or some such shit. Naruto laughed. Ah, what a dumb idea. Yeah, Anbu for sure. He couldn't wait for the test. He had pretty much recovered from his injuries, and the luxury of his apartment, though basic, a veritable palace compared to his root quarters, would make his stay quite pleasant. Hell, he had once spent 4 days without sleep in a sewage pipe, waiting to assassinate his target. Kakashi wandered through the streets of Konoha, his nose deep in a certain orange book, seemingly engrossed in its contents as he effortlessly navigated the busy streets. But appearances can be deceiving, and his mind was actually busy on other things than the masterpiece of writing that Jiraiya had concocted. He had been keeping his ear to the ground ever since he had left the Anbu. His last mission had been to investigate the death of Masuka Yamanaka and the presence of the Kyuubi's chakra. It had not gone well. He had heard of Naruto's disappearance and felt awful that he hadn't been there for the boy. After his sensei's death, he had thrown himself back into his Anbu work, unwilling to face his friends or colleagues. Then Naruto had gone missing. Now something was going on in Konoha, he could sense it. He might be out of Anbu, but he still hung around with its members now and again, and an open ear and observant eyes were always hanging. A few days ago, an Anbu patrol had returned early, not something most people would notice, but he had. Then an Anbu member had been put into intensive care as a vegetable. The lights in the Hokage's tower had been on all night, and the Anbu who guarded the Hokage were being unusually secretive. Kakashi knew something was up. He just didn't know what. Something was definitely going down, and he had a horrible suspicion that it was going to involve him. He sighed, unhappy that he couldn't focus on his all-important reading. Putting his book away, he jumped from the street onto the rooftops and made his way to the Rusty Kanai, a popular ninja bar frequented by the higher echelons of Konoha shinobi. The bar was noisy despite it being the middle of the day, and a chorus of greetings washed over Kakashi as he entered. After some perfunctory hellos, Kakashi grabbed a drink and made his way to the back of the bar, where the more committed drinkers were busy drowning their various worries. He instinctively homed in on a small group of off-duty Anbu, his curiosity from earlier rekindled by what he saw at the table. His uncovered eye was drawn to 2 of the Anbu members who wore a cat and boar pushed up on their heads. He knew Cat as Yugao, an old friend from his Anbu day, while Boar was a relatively new addition to the Anbu who Kakashi didn't know. His keen eye picked up little details that Cat and Boar were trying to hide. A wince when Cat picked up her drink. Boar was sitting in a careful posture, being careful not to twist or bend his torso. They were injured, not badly, but certainly they had taken a serious knocking around. That was odd. He knew that Boar and Cat had been part of the Hokage's protection detail, and that there had been no attempts on his life. Such an event would have been instant news all over the village. No, something else had happened, something different, something connected. Hey Yugao, what's up with the injuries? You piss off the old man something fierce or what? Kakashi asked. Not exactly subtle, but hey, he was tired of beating around the bush. Fuck you, Kakashi. When was the last time you did any real work, eh? I've heard you've been getting slack since you got appointed as Junin sensei. Still haven't passed a team yet, huh? Replied Yugao, trying not to wince from her various injuries. What can I say, Yugao? I guess my standards are just too high. Kakashi eyes smiled, leaning towards her. At least I'm not getting beaten up by an old man. What'd you do? Forget to put sugar in his tea? He patted her back in mock sympathy, as she winced in pain from his light touch. "Shut it, Kakashi," Yugao growled. "You have no idea what me and Boar went through. It was a damn massacre." "Cat, silence. We're not allowed to talk about it," Boar cautioned her. "Oh, shut it, Boar. Kakashi's cool, you're so damn stuck up." Yugao snapped back. Kakashi simply continued to smile. They had already dropped enough information for him to be going on with. It had confirmed his suspicions that there was something going on, but what was it? He stayed at the bar for a while longer, but Yugao had clammed up and Boar was making sure that she didn't say anything more. He left the bar after a couple of hours, a wee bit drunk, reeking of alcohol. His earlier suspicions and theories had been forgotten in his drunken haze. Instead, his mind was now thinking of his next genin team. It was still another 4 months until graduation, but he enjoyed tormenting the cute little genins. Ah, what fun! He hoped this year's graduating class would be as amusing as last year's bunch. The Hokage shuffled his paperwork on the desk. He really should get round to doing it at some point. Naruto's assessment of his skills had gone well. The boy had mopped the floor with Boar and Cat. Truly remarkable how skilled he was. Suppose he could thank Root and Danzo for that. It was just a pity that the Root had such barbaric training methods, but you could say what you wanted about Root, they got results. He had just had Naruto in his office to inform him of his decision about his placement within Konoha's ninja forces, which had been more amusing than it should have. It had been nice to see such a human reaction from the previously emotionless boy. Even anger had been good to see. It meant there was still something human within the boy. He honestly couldn't wait for Naruto's mission to begin. It was going to be interesting. Naruto stood stock still in the hallway. He couldn't believe the Hokage had done this to him. The bastard. His emotions were proving extremely difficult to control. He was shaking, trying to stop himself from screaming in rage. He would rather face the 7 swordsmen of the mist than be here now. Truly, this was an awful fate. But despite his anger, he couldn't repress some small stupid part of him that was excited and eager to start. Damn it. At least he was prepared. He had all the equipment he needed to carry out his assignment. He had a small canvas bag with the necessary tools in, and instead of the usual dark blue ninja outfit he normally wore when conducting missions, he had gotten an outfit from a tailor especially for this mission. He wore a skin-tight black long-sleeved top, across which were crisscrossed a pair of bandoliers, their pouches filled with an assortment of gear. This couldn't be seen as his entire torso was concealed behind an overly large hoodie that rested baggily of his shoulders. The hood hung low over his face, almost meeting the high thick collar that came up to his nose, concealing half his face, the space between the hood and the collar creating a thin slit which allowed Naruto to see out but kept the interior of the hood dark so no one could see his face. The hoodie's sleeves were too long, with wide loose cuffs that kept his hands hidden, allowing him to perform hand signs unseen or detected. He wore loose but not too baggy pants that were taped around the ankles where they met a pair of gray combat boots. His outer clothing was a pale gray, with darker smudges of gray and black and patches of white. The effect of the strange coloring made him extremely difficult to see as he blurred with the background of the corridor. He took a deep breath to calm his rage and cursed the Hokage for one last time before opening the door and stepping through to start his mission. "Naruto Uzumaki reporting for class Iruka-sensei," announced Naruto in a quiet and resigned voice as he stepped into the academy classroom. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.